If I told you you could have anything you've ever wanted, all you have to do is drive for 11 miles, would you do it? Now, how about if I told you that during those 11 miles, you would see and experience things that no human was ever meant to witness, and the memory of it would haunt you for the rest of your life? Well, there's this thing called the 11-mile ritual, and believe me, some things are just simply not worth it. I absolutely do not recommend trying this because your desire has to be something you absolutely cannot live without, because if it's not, you will find it nearly impossible to finish the journey, which will definitely result in your death. But if the almost certain promise of death didn't scare you off, you have to do this at night by yourself when the roads are empty. Yeah, you have to get into your car, drive to a stretch of road surrounded by the woods, and drive until you see some kind of specific road, which, by the way, this road you're looking for has no name and technically doesn't even exist, but you'll know it when you see it, or so they say. Now, if and when you do find that road, you will turn onto it, turn off your radio, put your phone away, because did I mention that there is absolutely no cell service? So if anything goes wrong, not only can you not turn around, you also can't call for help, which is absolutely terrifying. I hate being cut off from the rest of the world. But once you make the decision to turn down that road, the 11 miles starts and there's no going back. Keeping a consistent speed of 30 miles per hour, you will venture down this nameless road, and at first it will seem like it's easy, which, like, what's the big deal here? It's just driving down a road with nobody on it. That is until the temperature starts to drop and continues to drop until it reaches temperatures that are deadly. The further you go, the more unpredictable the road becomes. It will twist and turn. There's going to be deep potholes that will appear without warning, and you will have to avoid them because if your car breaks down, you won't survive the cold. Yes, you will freeze to death. But don't worry, keeping your car moving is not your only challenge. Just when you start to feel like you've gotten used to it, the sinister beings lurking in the trees will start to make themselves known. You're gonna start seeing human-shaped shadows peeking out at you from behind the trees, and as much as you want to look at them, the best thing to do is ignore them, and they will start whispering to you, and before long, it's gonna sound like one is sitting in the back seat right behind you whispering into your ear. But do not listen, and whatever you do, do not turn around to look, because the sight of these sinister beings is simply too much for the human mind to comprehend. It will kill you or drive you mad. At some point, that radio you turned off may start playing on its own with this calm voice telling you your deepest, darkest fears. It's important not to let it get to you or not to listen at all, because trust me, they know if you're listening, and it's not pretty. By mile 5, all of those trees that the sinister shadow beings are hiding behind will start to fade away, and you will notice a never-ending lake glowing beneath a perfect moon. I do have to warn you though, no matter how beautiful it looks, you have to keep your eyes on the road, because if you look too long, the road ahead of you will disappear and your car will crash into the icy water, killing you. By mile 8, the cold outside will become deadly. Your headlights might cut out, and if they do, you need to slow down, but do not stop, because if you stop, those shadow figures will surround your car and start clawing at your windows. You thought that one was bad. Well, at mile 9, your car will completely stall, and as soon as it does, you have to shut your eyes and try to restart it, because the shadow beings will gather all around you. And remember, you're not supposed to look at them because it won't be pretty, but if you get the engine running again, they will disappear and back off. Mile 10 will start to feel calm, almost normal, just like it was at the beginning, but do not let your guard down, because at mile 11, your car will lose power again, though it will keep moving forward as if it's being pulled by something unseen, and up ahead you will see a glowing red light. This glowing red light is most certainly some kind of hell, so close your eyes, do not open them, no matter what. Covering your ears might help as well, because there's going to be some really awful noises that you will never get out of your head, but keeping your eyes shut is what matters most. This will last for about 31 seconds. The heat will become unbearable, your skin will feel like it's burning away, but as long as you keep your eyes closed, you will survive. After that final mile, your car will work again, and you will eventually arrive at this dead-end stop. You have to stop here, close your eyes, and imagine what you desired, and once you have it in your mind, slowly open your eyes, and you will be right back where you started at the beginning of that no-named road. If what you wished for was material, check your back seat, check the trunk, check your pocket, but if what you wished for is not material, turn back the way you came, and you will soon realize that what it is you wanted is now present in your life. But just be warned, those terrifying sounds you heard on the 11th mile will almost certainly embed into your mind, causing you to have vivid nightmares for the rest of your life. But they say that these should be nothing compared to what you've received in return. That is the 11-mile ritual. Sounds absolutely terrifying. I would never want to do anything like that. Do not try that. If you ever find a drawer in your house that's been nailed shut, whatever you do, don't open it. It's very possible something was locked inside to keep it from escaping, because if it does, things could get very, very bad. There was a family who moved into this old farmhouse way out in the country, but just weeks after settling in, they experienced something truly terrifying, and it all began when they opened a drawer that had been nailed shut by the previous owners. On the day they first moved in, while their parents were still unpacking and getting things organized, Mia and Max began exploring the house to see what they could find. And after checking most of the rooms, Max ended up in the kitchen, where he started going through cabinets and drawers, hoping the previous owners had left something behind, especially since they had left so suddenly without much warning. When he reached the last drawer tucked in the corner of the kitchen, he tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. It had been nailed shut, and whoever sealed it off clearly did not want it open, but Max kept at it until he finally pried it open, and inside he found this very creepy white porcelain mask that looked like a mold of someone's real face. But Max did not see it as creepy. He just thought it was cool and decided to keep it in his room on his dresser. But over the next few days, something very strange started happening. Every morning when Max woke up, the mask wasn't on the dresser where he left it. One day it would be on the kitchen counter, another day it was at the bottom of the stairs, and once he even found it in the bathroom. Max was convinced that Mia had been sneaking into his room at night just to mess with him. Mia swore she wasn't, but this turned into a constant argument. Max calling her a liar, Mia getting angry that he didn't believe her, and eventually their mom had enough. She took the mask and hid it in the back of her bedroom closet where neither of them could get to it. But the next morning when she walked into Mia's room, she stopped in her tracks, completely off guard. There was Mia sitting on her bed playing quietly, and right beside her was the mask. Mia insisted that she hadn't touched it. She didn't go into her mom's closet in the middle of the night. She said it just magically appeared on her bed when she woke up that morning. But it kept happening. No matter where their mom hid the mask, behind books, in drawers, even in the attic, every single morning Mia was back in her room playing with it like it had never been moved. Eventually they just gave up. Whether Mia was somehow finding it or the mask was somehow finding her didn't really matter anymore. They just let her keep it. And from that point on, Mia became completely attached to the mask. She wouldn't go anywhere without it, and before long she began sleeping with it on, which deeply unsettled her parents. Sometimes they'd peek into her room late at night and find her fast asleep with the porcelain mask over her face. This went on for weeks, but things finally came to a head one morning when Mia refused to take the mask off before school. That was the breaking point. Her parents told her enough was enough, the mask had to go. So later that night, after everyone was asleep, Max quietly snuck into Mia's room. Careful not to wake her, he gently removed the mask from her face, then he walked downstairs, went into the kitchen, and reopened the drawer where he'd first found it. Using the nails that were still there, he sealed it shut again, just hoping that it would be the end of it. But the next morning, Mia was gone. Her mom walked into her room expecting to see her playing with the mask like always, but the room was silent. Mia's bed was made, her toys were untouched, and lying right in the center of her bed was the white porcelain mask. When her mom picked it up, her hands went cold because from deep inside the mask, a faint voice whispered, "Please don't put me back in the drawer." The family searched every room, every inch of the property, but Mia had vanished without a trace. So they did the only thing they could. They placed the mask back into the drawer it came from, hammered it shut with twice as many nails as before, and then, just like the family before them, they packed up and abandoned the farmhouse without saying a word. No one has lived there since, and as far as we know, that drawer has never been opened again. If you've made it to the end of this video and you haven't had a chance to check the caption, please know this is a fictional story. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium is one of the scariest haunted locations I've ever heard about. From ghostly figures to disembodied voices, creepy shadowy figures that crawl up the walls and into the ceilings, it is one of the most terrifying places in the world. But if you know me, you know I have to get into the history about this place. So in the late 1800s, Major Thomas H. Hayes bought a plot of land in Jefferson County, Kentucky, with dreams of building a home for his growing family. So Major Hayes and his family moved into this charming red brick house that was perched halfway up a large hill on the property. And while the property seemed like the perfect place to settle down, there was a problem. There weren't any schools nearby for his children to attend. But as he explored the property further, he came across a small one-room frame building at the base of the hill just across from their home. He saw an opportunity and arranged to use the building as a private school for his children and several other children in the community. And he hired a teacher named Lizzie Lee Harris to run it. Now, Miss Harris loved Walter Scott's Waverly novels so much so that she named the schoolhouse Waverly School. Thomas loved the name. He thought it sounded so peaceful and elegant, and he decided to call his entire property Waverly Hill. But while Thomas and his family were busy building their lives, a much darker reality was spreading across the country. During the 18th and 19th centuries, tuberculosis was claiming millions of lives around the world. This disease wasn't new, it had been around throughout much of human history, but by this point, it had reached epidemic proportions. By the early 1900s, Louisville, Kentucky had one of the highest tuberculosis death rates in the entire country. The disease was spreading rapidly, and the city's geography didn't help. It was built on low, swampy land that provided the perfect environment for this TB bacteria to thrive. Combine that with industrial pollution and overcrowded neighborhoods, and it was a disaster waiting to happen. Entire families and communities were being wiped out by the disease. And back then, there was no cure for tuberculosis. The specific antibiotic used in TB treatment wouldn't be discovered until the 1940s, so doctors had to get creative, and that's when the idea of sanatoriums came into play. The concept was simple: provide lots of fresh air, sunlight, and isolation from the general public in hopes of slowing the spread of the disease and giving patients a chance to recover. By 1906, the Board of Tuberculosis Hospital was formed with the goal of providing care to the citizens of Jefferson County, Kentucky, and they had a $25,000 budget to build a facility that would do so. So the board purchased Thomas's Waverly Hills and began construction on a 2-story wooden sanatorium, which officially opened its doors in July of 1910. It was very small, designed to house around 40 patients in the early stages of tuberculosis, but demand for care was overwhelming right from the start. People were desperate, and Waverly Hills quickly became overcrowded with patients seeking treatment. In the years that followed, the sanatorium was expanded to try and keep up. They added more beds, a nurse training school, and even a children's pavilion. But even with the expansions, the wooden structure couldn't handle the constant strain. It was always in need of repairs, and no matter what they did, it simply wasn't big enough to accommodate everyone who needed help. So in 1924, construction started on something much bigger, a 5-story building sturdy enough to last and large enough to hold more than 400 patients in all stages of TB. When it finally opened in October of 1926, Waverly Hills was cutting edge, a spacious 180,000 square foot facility with open air pavilions. Patients even had access to their own telephones, radios, and solarium porches so they could soak in this fresh air and sunlight in hopes of getting better. But as advanced as the facility was, the treatments for tuberculosis were another story entirely. Some were simple, like giving patients plenty of sunlight and fresh air, but other treatments were incredibly brutal. One procedure involved surgically inserting balloons into a patient's lungs and inflating them, and another required removing ribs and muscles from the chest to create more space. These procedures were as painful as they were risky. Many patients didn't survive the operations, and those who did were often left to endure weeks of agony before the disease ultimately claimed them. Death was a constant reality at Waverly Hills. At its worst, the sanatorium reportedly saw as many as 6 deaths per hour. Just imagine being a patient there, hoping to get better while being surrounded by so much loss every single day. It must have been heartbreaking. To keep the patients from seeing just how many people were dying and to avoid upsetting the patients still fighting for their lives, the staff came up with a way to quietly move the bodies without anyone noticing. They used a hidden supply tunnel, now known as the body chute, that stretched from the building down the hill to a set of railroad tracks. Some say after they moved these bodies through the tunnels, they would use a motorized rail system to lower the bodies into waiting train cars, while others believe these bodies were carried out to a hearse parked at the bottom of the hill. But there are darker stories about what happened after a patient died. Some claim bodies were stacked in storage rooms or hung on meat hooks, but it's hard to know how much of that is actually true. By the 1940s, everything began to change. The antibiotic, which finally helped control tuberculosis, was discovered, death rates dropped, and places like Waverly Hills were no longer needed. So in June of 1961, the sanatorium closed its doors. But the building didn't stay empty for long. In 1962, it reopened as Woodhaven Medical Services, a nursing home for elderly patients. There were allegations of abuse, cockroach infestations, and medical malpractice. Now, the details of what happened inside Woodhaven were never fully revealed, but there were plenty of rumors. And in 1982, the state shut it down for good. After that, there were talks of turning it into a minimum security prison or even apartments, but nothing ever came of those plans. Eventually, the property ended up in the hands of Robert Alberhasky, the founder of the Christ the Redeemer Foundation. He wanted to place this massive statue of Jesus on the roof and convert the rest of the building into a chapel, theater, and gift shop. Because there weren't any sizable donations, the plan fell apart, and Robert ditched the property in December of 1997, leaving it abandoned until 2001, when it was purchased by Tina and Charlie Mattingly. They did work to restore the building, but during the years it sat abandoned, many people walked inside, coming out with chilling stories to share. Some say they've seen the ghost of a little girl or a boy named Timmy who walks around the halls just looking to play ball. There have been reports of slamming doors, unexplained lights flickering in the windows, and more than one person has claimed to see a man dressed in white drifting through the corridors. But the most chilling and sinister entity tied to Waverly Beverly Hills is known as the Creeper. This shadowy figure is said to haunt the 4th floor, and it can be seen crawling up the walls and into the ceiling. And then there's the most haunted location, the 5th floor, specifically room 502. There, visitors have reported shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and an overwhelming sense of unease. The most infamous stories tied to room 502 involve 2 nurses, both of which took their lives, one in 1928 and the other in 1932, but there's no hard evidence or any records to back these stories up. Today, visitors can explore the grounds, take guided tours, and even participate in their own paranormal investigations to see for themselves if the stories are real.